The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated.
I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel. My favorites and yours, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound, and today we will be answering listener emails, and we have a question from Tamera, who lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Tamera asks, so the ceasefire seems to be going badly. Israel is accusing Hamas of violating the ceasefire and has said they will resume military strikes, which I believe they already have. That's my addendum. I know you talked about this a week or so ago, and I agreed with your assessment. Once the hostages were released, there was nothing standing in the way of Israel's completely destroying Gaza. So I guess my question would be, if you all were Hamas, why would you agree to the terms of the ceasefire in the first place? Is there some backroom strategy that I'm missing? Or was this just a blunder on their part? And Tamera, that is an excellent question. Mark Scott, considering Israel has already started slamming Gaza with more strikes?
I mean, the latest over there seems to be that Israel is declaring that the ceasefire is back on. So we're in a weird territory here where the ceasefire is off for a few hours while we kill some more people, and then the ceasefire is back on again. Look, there's... Why Gaza had to do this, I think probably had a lot to do with the fact that they don't have much support anymore. Iran is not in a great position. There's no Hezbollah. The Gulf states don't want anything to do with them. Bombing of Qatar, I think was a message, even though it didn't actually achieve any of the goals that they had as far as killing the people from Hamas that they were trying to kill. But I think that they once again let people know that we can get you wherever you are. And maybe this fight has gone on long enough and you don't want to do this anymore. And I think that was it. I mean, they could always go out and snatch more hostages if they want to, I suppose. But I don't think it's getting them anywhere at this point. The negotiations, peace is made by negotiations. States are made by negotiations. They're not made by fiat. Certainly no European power should have the temerity to say, we recognize the Palestinian state after you did such a bang-up job after World War I and World War II of creating the mess that is the Middle East right now. Please just walk away and let them sort this out as best they can. But, that's it. I mean, it's going to be a violent ceasefire.
I've said, if you want to blame somebody for the problems in the Middle East, look to the British after World War II. Just basically, I swear they were probably getting drunk, whoever was working onto it, and just drawing arbitrary lines, not thinking about who was living in what area. They put people together that just absolutely historically do not belong together and never got along. And they just seemed to say, well, there you go. There's the countries as they are. If we're all Hamas, I honestly don't think that we can actually think that way. But if I was, I'd say I'm calling it a blunder. I'm truly calling it a blunder. There probably is some reason that is, again, as Scott has always said, the truth is the first thing that suffers in a war, and we cannot trust anything that comes out of that area as far as information is concerned. So it'd be very difficult to say, if I'm Hamas and I've got hostages and the only reason Israel is not bombing me back to the Stone Age is because they're afraid of killing the people that I'm holding, I think I'm going to keep that. I've seen what they can do. I don't think I want to give up that bit of security, that little bit of security that I have. So to me, that's a blunder. Now, we don't know what was offered or what was said or what was done, because, of course, the truth being a casualty of war. But I just can't see that there was any strategy. And I understand what you're asking, Tamera. I truly do understand. Was this some backroom thing? I don't think so. I just think that, as Scott said, Hamas has lost a lot of support, but then so has Israel. And now all of the restraints from Israel just going in and just leveling the place are over with. There's nothing stopping them. And I also agree with Scott. Europe, stay out of it. You made in a lot of ways, you made this mess historically over the years. And again, I blame Britain after World War II. But there's a lot of examples throughout history where this has not been the most stable, other than if you want to talk at the time when there was the Ottoman Empire, and there was some stability there. I mean, you can go back into the 10th century. You could go back into the 7th century. You talk about the Byzantines. You could talk about all, the Holy Roman Empire, the East and West Roman Empire. This has always been an area of contention. And once, which was kind of funny, because when you think about the property that we're talking about here, we're not talking about high value property here. We're talking about sand, until the advent of oil. Now it's become high value property. So Europe, keep your nose out of this, because you've made a right mess of it anyway. You're not gonna make it any better. All those nations that are saying, yes, we recognize the Palestinian state, okay, it doesn't mean anything in my mind at all. I don't see the purpose of it. I truly don't. Of course, we do a lot of funny things. Why did we eject Taiwan from the United Nations, but allow the People's Republic of China in? So there's all sorts of different examples where things are done. But in this case, in its just on its face value, to me, I truly, I cannot figure out why they would agree to this. Because the one shield they had is now gone.
So this is not insight. Okay, I have no idea. So, but I'm going to speculate, because it is based on stuff that they have said, that they don't want to rule Gaza in the way that they had before. They don't want to be the governor of Gaza. All they want to do is be the thugs, the power in Gaza. That's what Hamas wants. And what was the first thing that they did when the ceasefire happened? They started executing Palestinians. They dragged them out onto the street and they shot them in the back of the head, and they reasserted their power. This is not an organization that's looking for freedom or peace or a two-state solution or harmony in the world. This is an organization that is probably a more cruel version of the mafia, or some kind of like cartel where they cut people's throats all the time, and anybody who gets out of line, gets hit real hard, and into the pizza oven they go, and all that kind of stuff. It's not people romanticizing Hamas is insanity. I think they've calculated that there can still be the power in Gaza, and whether they have the a town hall or not, and they get, I guess they get what they want from that. I mean, it's a gang. It's I don't know what else to call it. It's a Nazi SA brown shirt organization. It's all bad stuff. If you're thinking good things about Hamas, you're very, very misguided. They're adapting as best they can to the changing circumstances that they live on. It has nothing to do with the good of the Palestinian people. They continue to prove that all the time, and I don't see any end to that in sight.
That may truly be the answer. There is no political answer to this, because they don't act like a normal political nation state's political structure would act. So they're an enigma as far as this is concerned. You cannot relate them to very many. I think gang is a pretty good scenario that Scott brought up here. That's really what it's like. And gangs don't always operate logically as a nation state would. They operate in the moment and for their own benefit and to hell with everybody else. I think the mafia probably acts better than they do, to be honest. This is kind of, if I was to relate it to somebody and or to something, I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback on this. The IRA, maybe the IRA, maybe. maybe that's, and that's even a bad scenario, a bad comparison as well. So I really don't know, Tamara. I couldn't tell you. All I do know is that if I'm a nation state and I hold some leverage whatsoever that keeps me from getting myself bombed back to the Stone Age, I probably want to hold on to that leverage as long as I can until I get some assurances, until somebody puts a bunch of barriers in front, like a UN peacekeeping force on my land, to make sure that if the Israelis bombed, they're bombing the UN, and the UN would get pissed about it. I want that. And that didn't seem to be in the calculation for Hamas. So yeah, I honestly don't know.
Well, also remember, Mark, we're only in phase 1 still.
This is
true.
It's
been a couple of weeks, but we haven't gotten out of phase 1. And I don't know if they're ever going to get to phase 2. This situation goes back to something like a status quo, where.
Well, the question is there going to be anything left to go back to stage 2 for? That's really
Well, one of the interesting things was that Israeli who was killed the other day that started this, who was also, I think, an American citizen, by the way, was operating a heavy machinery that was cleaning rubble. Right. I mean, like, he was down there working, trying to clean the mess up, and Hamas murdered him. He wasn't a combat soldier, patrolling the streets with his rifle or anything like that. Look, it's a very sick group, Hamas. Again, nobody should romanticize what they are. Coming up with a comparison is really hard. I mean, you mentioned the IRA. I immediately thought of Khmer Rouge.
Yes.
Like, I'm not really sure, like, how you want to put it. Just murdering their own people. They'll murder anybody. None of these Arab countries are gonna put people in there. Certainly, we should never put any troops in harm's way in there. And I don't see phase 2 happening anytime soon. So,
all right,
like the kids say, it is what it is.
That's right.
By the way, I'm not.
Would be in my own self-interest.
I'm not sure that the hostages being that we're going to be any kind of leverage for much longer. Don't underestimate Bibi Netanyahu. I don't think that everybody is inexpendable in his eyes either. So, they're going to look. It's a vicious bunch over there. They're going to do what they have to do.
No, yeah. So thank you, Scott and Mark, both of you, and thank you, Tamara, for your question. Any further thoughts?
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Nope. All righty. So thank you again, Tamara, and we will see what happens again. So we'll be able to tell you more maybe by the end of the year. We'll see. It seems to have been a blunder, but who knows? We will continue to monitor the situation, and we'll see as events unfold.
Okay.
Thank you for your question, and thank you for sharing some time with us on the Nova Society.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening!